Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan, coming up in the next 30 minutes. India expresses deep concern over Gaza situation, calls for immediate release of all hostages and ensure continuous supply of humanitarian aid. India's External Affairs Minister calls for macro business strategy at Raisina Dialogue, likens tariff deployment to weaponization. India's Union Cabinet approves incentive scheme to promote low-value Beam UPI transactions, also clears 6-lane access-controlled high-speed national highway in Maharashtra. And Russia and Ukraine both report air attacks after Putin-Trump call. Zelenskyy to speak with US President Trump on Wednesday, says US should monitor ceasefire. A top story, India on Wednesday expressed deep concern over the situation in Gaza a day after Israel launched fresh airstrikes across the Gaza Strip. In a statement released by India's Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi called for the urgent need for the release of all hostages and the continuous supply of humanitarian aid to the region. The MEA also reiterated its call for sustained assistance to the people of Gaza amid the ongoing crisis. Meanwhile, Hamas on Wednesday said that it remained open to negotiations while calling for pressure on Israel for implementing a truce. Though Hamas is open to talks on getting the ceasefire back on track, it says will not renegotiate the agreement that took effect on January 19. Israel and Hamas have disagreed over how to proceed with the ceasefire, with Israel wanting to extend stage 1 and the latter demanding to move to a new phase intended to bring the conflict to an end. Tensions are escalating once again in Gaza after massive overnight airstrikes. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that this is only the beginning. The airstrikes are the largest since a truce was established in January. More on renewed tensions in West Asia in this report.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to continue military pressure until all hostages are released, and further warned that future negotiations with Hamas will take place only under fire.
Israel will fight, and Israel will win. We will bring our people home, and we will destroy Hamas. We will not relent until we achieve all these vital goals, and we will not rest until we give our country a future of peace, prosperity, and hope.
Netanyahu also urged Palestinians in Gaza to avoid any contact with Hamas and get out of harm's way. He put the blame squarely on Hamas for the present situation.
Hamas refused offer after offer to release our hostages. In the past 2 weeks, Israel did not initiate any military action in the hope that Hamas would change course. Well, that didn't happen.
The United States has also blamed Hamas for the resumption of hostilities, saying they bear total responsibility for the strikes.
The blame for the resumption of hostilities lies solely with Hamas. This brutal terrorist organization has steadfastly refused every proposal and deadline they've been presented over the past few weeks, including a bridge proposal to extend the ceasefire beyond Ramadan and Passover, to allow time to negotiate a framework for a permanent ceasefire. Hamas refused this offer.
While Hamas has warned that the Israeli action could endanger the remaining hostages, the UN has on the other hand pressed for the ceasefire to be respected and for the humanitarian aid to continue for Gaza.
I believe that the role of the UN is to do everything to convince the parties, first, for the ceasefire to be fully respected. Second, for humanitarian aid to have access to Gaza in an unimpeded way. And third, for the unconditional release of hostages. And we will not give up on these objectives.
Gulf nations, EU have expressed concern and called for the cessation of renewed hostilities, while the families of Israeli hostages pleaded with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to halt the violence, fearing for the fate of their loved ones. Aarti Rana's report for DD India.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has said that tariffs and sanctions are being weaponized and countries use them. The minister was speaking at the 10th edition of Raisina Dialogue in New Delhi. Dr. Jaishankar, along with other speakers, shared his thoughts on the topic, commissars and capitalist, politics, business and new world order. The panel explored how political decisions are shaping businesses and are being implicated by them. Dr. Jaishankar discussed the ways of how business and geopolitical imperatives are reshaping global trade, finance and digital landscapes.
There are different ways of dealing with weaponization. One is to stay on the right side of the weapon. So, you don't get hit. The world today makes business decisions, factoring in national security. In the digital era, I think it's not just about cost. It is about comfort. It is about trust. We are involved right now in 3 big trade negotiations with the EU, with the UK, and now with the United States. These are our growth markets. These are our technology partners. I think there are non-economic factors which I think increasingly influence business decisions.
And over 3,500 participants from about 125 countries have joined the dialogue in person. In various sessions, the participants are discussing the state of the world and explore opportunities for cooperation on a wide range of contemporary matters. In today's session of Destiny or Destination, Culture, Connectivity and Tourism, India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant highlighted that India plays a significant role in job creation and possesses immense potential that is unmatched by any other country.
Be a very, very big driver of job creation. It has a huge multiplier impact in terms of both hard infrastructure, in terms of soft infrastructure. But the fact is that the wealth of heritage, the wealth of the tourism assets which India has, no other country in the world has, and that we need to utilize to its full potential in the days to come. And that can be a very big driver of both growth and job creation for it.
And India's Minister of State for External Affairs, Pabitra Margarita, today delivered a keynote address at the 10th CII India-LAC conclave in the national capital. The minister highlighted India's willingness to pursue a just and inclusive world order by forging strong partnerships, especially with the Latin American and Caribbean countries.
What we also did leading up to the G20 is bringing people of the world together and make their voice heard on the voice of Global South. India is Global South. You are all Global South. And this combined voice was brought into the agenda of G20, which stands for over 80% of global trade and finances. Friends, presently, bilateral trade between India and LAC region is less than $50 billion. In the last conclave, our External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, had given ourselves a target of $100 billion bilateral trade by 27-28.
At the Raisina Dialogue, India's Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan addressed the evolving landscape of hybrid warfare and the critical challenges it presents. He noted that India has been facing asymmetric threats, and it is called the subconventional kind of conflict in India.
India has been facing this asymmetric threat or what you call as this kind of a threat. The biggest lesson is that there is no substitute for boots on grounds. Technology can only be an enabler, but it cannot replace people. I think that's very important. Second important lesson is about shaping of the combat zone, actually. In conventional conflicts, you shape the battlefield with fire, actually. Over here, we are looking at shaping of the mindscape, not the landscape.
And speaking at the Raisina Dialogue, Congress MP Shashi Tharoor said that Prime Minister Modi's foreign policy has positioned India as a key diplomatic player, and India has maintained ties with both Ukraine and Russia.
So 3 years later, it does look like I'm the one with egg on my face, because clearly the policy has meant that India has actually a prime minister who can hug both the president of Ukraine and the president of Moscow 2 weeks apart and be accepted in both places. And therefore, India is in a position where it can make a difference to a lasting peace, if it was so required, in ways that very few countries would be able to.
As Russian President Vladimir Putin demanded that Western countries stop providing military support to Ukraine under any final ceasefire agreement with Kiev, after a phone call with US President Donald Trump yesterday, the trajectory of Washington's peace efforts is causing significant unease in Europe. DD India's Amritpal Singh spoke with former Prime Minister of Sweden, Carl Bildt, at the Raisina Dialogue in New Delhi.
Even as US President Donald Trump and the Russian President Vladimir Putin concluded their phone call yesterday, there is considerable unease in Europe about the way things are progressing. I have with me former Prime Minister of Sweden, Carl Bildt, to talk about that. Excellency, how do you see the way the talks are progressing between right now Russia and the United States, how President Trump is trying to get at least a ceasefire through in the initial phases?
He is trying to get a ceasefire. I think that's good. But what we learned yesterday, perhaps not that surprising, was that Mr. Putin is not ready for ceasefire. They said effectively no to President Trump. Then he said, well, let's do some more limited, whatever that is. We will see now what's going to be the next step of President Trump.
But clearly President Trump is here, to see that a ceasefire comes into effect soon. So he's speaking both to the Ukrainians and to the Russians. What does Europe want?
Then a ceasefire is good, but it doesn't sort out everything. Then after that, there would be the need for, I think, a prolonged period of political talks to find more sustainable solutions.
So clearly there seems to be a difference, discernible difference between the United States and Europe on how the truce deal should come about. With cameraman Mohit Uike, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in New Delhi.
And India's Union Cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Modi, on Wednesday approved incentive scheme for promotion of low-value Bhim UPI person-to-merchant transactions. Addressing the media, Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav said that the scheme will be implemented at an estimated outlay of 1,500 crore from April 2024 to March 2025. Incentive at the rate of 0.15% per transaction value will be provided for transactions up to 2,000 for small merchants.
नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने 2020-21 से एक स्पेशल स्कीम चलाकर एमडीआर की कॉस्ट न पड़े कस्टमर्स पे वो एक सिस्टम बनाया है. 1,500 करोड़ रुपीस की ये स्कीम है. एंड एज पर दिस स्कीम फॉर ऑल ट्रांजैक्शंस विच आर पर्सन टू मर्चेंट, जो स्मॉल मर्चेंट्स के पेमेंट्स होंगे अप टू 2,000 रुपीज, उसमें कोई ट्रांजैक्शन की कॉस्ट नहीं लगेगी और उनको इंसेंटिव दिया जाएगा.
And the minister also announced that the cabinet has approved setting up an urea production complex in Assam's Namrup. The project, worth over 10,600 crore rupees, will significantly change the availability of urea in the northeast region.
नामरूप में ब्रह्मपुत्र वैली फर्टिलाइजर कॉर्पोरेशन लिमिटेड की एक प्लांट है. उसकी प्रीमाइसेस के अंदर अमोनिया यूरिया कॉम्प्लेक्स नामरूप 4 फर्टिलाइजर प्लांट के नाम से ये नया प्रोजेक्ट है. और इस प्रोजेक्ट में एक जॉइंट वेंचर बनेगा. 10,600 करोड़ रुपीस के टोटल इन्वेस्टमेंट से इस प्रोजेक्ट में यूरिया की मैन्युफैक्चरिंग होगी.
And former Microsoft CEO Bill Gates met India's Science and Technology Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh at North Block on Wednesday. Bill Gates, who is on his third visit to India in 3 years, emphasized India's role in global health, digital transformation and agricultural innovation. Earlier, he also met India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and discussed about country's development and path to developed India by 2047. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. 14th meeting of the experts working group of the ASEAN defence ministers plus in the national capital Delhi. And Boxing Federation of India in turmoil, secretary and treasurer are suspended over financial irregularities.
This week on Defence Dynamics, India and Bangladesh conduct a strategic naval patrol in the Bay of Bengal amid shifting regional alliances. Has Bongo Saga 2025 strengthened maritime security, or are diplomatic strains still at play? We decode this exercise and its significance. US launches military strikes on Yemen's Houthis. What does this mean for Middle East stability and global trade? India fortifies its high-altitude defences. How will the new vehicle-mounted infantry mortars transform border security? Plus, is the Five Eye Intelligence Alliance on the brink of collapse? A potential shake-up that could redefine global security. Tune in this Wednesday at 8 PM IST only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on Wednesday said that the United States should monitor a partial Russian-Ukrainian ceasefire on energy infrastructure after Moscow agreed to temporarily pause attacks on Ukrainian energy sites. The Ukrainian president also said he would speak to US President Donald Trump later in the day and that the United States should monitor any potential ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, focusing on energy facilities.
Today I will have contact with President Trump. We will discuss the details with him today. I think the details of the next step. We really had a very good meeting of our own teams in Jeddah. I think everything went well, if not for Russia, which is always not happy when something goes well.
And Russia and Ukraine accused each other on Wednesday of launching air attacks that sparked fires and damaged infrastructure just hours after the leaders agreed to a limited ceasefire to halt attacks on energy infrastructure. Ukrainian authorities stated that Russia started attacks early on Wednesday and its drones damaged 2 hospitals in Sumy, forcing evacuation. Ukrainian president also said that Russia had launched over 40 drones just hours after the Putin-Trump call. Elsewhere, Russia's defense ministry said that its units destroyed 57 Ukrainian drones overnight, adding that a drone attack sparked a small fire at an oil depot near Kavkazskaya. While no casualties have been reported on either side so far, overnight flights were suspended for a couple of hours from airports in Kazan, Nizhny Novgorod and Nizhnekamsk, Russia, to ensure air safety. And condemning the detention of the mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, over a corruption probe, angry protesters gathered near police headquarters on Wednesday. Calling it a coup against democracy, over 100 protesters gathered chanting anti-government slogans. The mayor is termed as political rival of President Erdogan, and his arrest comes days before he was to be named the party's candidate for the 2028 presidential election. Meanwhile, his wife also condemned the detention in strong words, calling the charges, which include corruption and aiding a terrorist group, laughable.
One can only laugh at such a thing. Accusations against Ekrem İmamoğlu of links to a criminal and terrorist organization. Such a thing is, of course, impossible. It cannot be. Such a thing cannot be. It is only laughable. There is a lot of wrong information going around. We all follow social media, don't we? For 20 days, a handful of people have messed up social media. They are horrible. Horrible. It is completely a huge slander. Everything will come out in the open anyway.
And stranded NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore returned to Earth after spending 9 unplanned months in space. The crew returned in a SpaceX capsule on Tuesday with a soft splashdown off Florida's coast, following which NASA held a return to Earth news conference where they informed that the crew is doing great. At the presser, Operations Integration Manager of the NASA's ISS program, Bill Spech, said Sunita and Butch did 150 experiments and 900 hours of research during their stint on the International Space Station. At the press conference, Deputy Associate Administrator of NASA's Space Operations Mission Directorate, Joel Montalbano, says the work that NASA astronauts did benefits the nation and increases the chance that NASA will hit its goal of landing a person on Moon and Mars. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed the safe return of NASA astronauts. Sharing a picture with NASA astronaut Sunita Williams, PM Modi wrote, and I quote him, "Welcome back, Crew 9. The Earth missed you. Theirs has been a test of grit, courage and the boundless human spirit. Sunita Williams and Crew 9 astronauts have once again shown us what perseverance truly means. Their unwavering determination in the face of the vast unknown will forever inspire millions. Space exploration is about pushing the limits of human potential, daring to dream and having the courage to turn those dreams into reality." Sunita Williams, a trailblazer and an icon, has exemplified this spirit throughout her career. We are incredibly proud of all those who worked tirelessly to ensure their safe return. They have demonstrated what happens when precision meets passion and technology meets tenacity. Unquote. And cars are playing a major role in an ongoing and increasingly aggressive trade war between the US and the European Union. And for more on this, Lars Halter with DW in Berlin. He has been following this story. He is joining us. Lars, what can you tell us about the transatlantic car trade?
Well, I got a few numbers here.
All right. Also, Lars, what are the problems with these American trucks on German roads?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, I got a few numbers here that just came out and they shed light on a rather small segment of the global car trade, but a really important one when it comes to latest trade issues. So obviously we've seen large parts of the world and the car markets move towards electric mobility, smaller cars, fewer emissions, but especially in the US, all this has long fallen on deaf ears. So I always found it comical when US President Trump complained about US cars not selling well in Europe. It is actually the main reason he is threatening German car makers with high import tariffs. He often asked, how many American trucks do you see driving in Berlin? He found it unfair that lots of Americans are driving German cars, Mercedes, BMW, Porsche and such, but that at the same time, hardly any Germans are driving US models. Now, here's the thing, much of what sells in the US is just not attractive for customers here. The best example, those giant pickup trucks that are prevalent on American roads, they're not fitting within European road rules and regulations. And they're also gas guzzlers, which looking at German and European gas prices is just not attractive. However, there are a few thousand American pickup trucks indeed driving around here, and that is causing more and more problems as it is.
All right, Lars, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your inputs. Back home, the 14th meeting of the Experts Working Group of the ASEAN Defence Ministers Plus is going on in Delhi. India and Malaysia are co-chairing the meeting. Delegations from 10 ASEAN members and 8 dialogue partners are the participants. India is the co-chair for the EWJ on counter-terrorism for the first time. India's Defence Secretary Rajesh Kumar Singh delivered the keynote address on Wednesday, stressing on tackling the misuse of emerging technologies such as AI and drones by terrorists.
It is no secret that the Indo-Pacific region in particular confronts numerous traditional and non-traditional security threats, including terrorism, narco-terrorism, narcotics trade, cyber threats, and all that in the midst of proliferation of new and emerging technologies. Terrorism remains a dynamic and evolving challenge with threats increasingly transcending national borders. The use of advanced technology, cyber tools, unmanned systems, etc. by terrorist groups necessitates a cohesive, forward-looking and action-oriented approach.
And that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.